I want to show you how to strengthen your rotator cuff, one of the most important muscles that helps us to lift our hands overhead, to be able to pull, push things, do very basic things, and even more advanced things is our rotator cuff. It's responsible for helping your arm to rotate, doing motions of rotation and all kind of things. Even just to lift our arm straight up requires some degree of rotation of our shoulder. And so if you're somebody who wants to strengthen your rotator cuff, I'm going to show you 3 phases of how to do that. The first phase of what we want to do when it comes to strengthening our rotator cuff is really being able to start off with basic motions of rotation. So where are our limitations whenever we're doing rotation motions? If you want to think about the shoulder joint, think about it moving in 3 planes of motion. We can think about up and down, think about moving in and out, think about rotating in these kind of ways. And then there are simultaneous kind of motions that happen when we do certain things. So just to raise my arm straight up will require some level of rotation of the shoulder to allow me to go fully up. And so how do we strengthen the rotator cuff? First phase is where we want to think about doing things in our active range of motion. So can I rotate where my arms are close to my body and my arm is not also abducted or moved away from my body? If my arms are close, can I do this, squeezing those shoulder blades together really tight? Is that painful? Is that limited? Do I have even motion? And if this is difficult, this is the phase where you want to start off, where we can build strength just using our own body weight and doing things like this. So this is a really great exercise. From here, what we may want to do from there is now add resistance bands to further make this difficult. Once we've been able to get to a place where doing it without the resistance band is easy, we're gonna open that. Is that painful? Is that difficult? This is a great way to build strength. Now, one of the things we may not realize is that we don't automatically have to just jump from not having, from doing, one resistance band to another. We can actually make this difficult by holding that for 3 to 5 seconds. And that's going to build even greater strength and durability to the shoulder muscle there. So what's the next kind of exercise that I would possibly begin to progress people in if they're trying to strengthen their rotator cuff? Well, there's a couple other things you may want to do, because when it comes to having your hands planted, like somebody who wants to do a push-up and you find like, I can't do a push-up anymore. One of the reasons or things that may be responsible is the rotator cuff weakness there. So simple exercise that can be a good starting point where it's low-hanging fruit for us is we're here in this position, and what we want to do is encourage weight bearing. So as I'm here, one of the first things I want to do is see if after I've been able to build up strength, can I now be in a more weight bearing position, and going 3 to 5 seconds, right? And seeing how is my shoulder tolerating. I want to be paying attention to how is the injured or the weaker rotator cuff side doing compared to the stronger one. And that's probably after I've gone through this first period of being able to see where I'm at with this kind of exercises and things like that. One of the other exercises that we can do for the rotator cuff in our phase 1 process is lying on our side. Let's say my left side is the weak rotator cuff. Well, I want to be able to see what happens if I just am able to rotate against gravity. That is going to be a step above what we were doing while we were kneeling. And this can be a really tough one for people. And you don't have to go all the way up. It's not about the motion. It's just about, am I getting that engagement? So maybe I start here and that's what I can tolerate. And doing that for starting 3 sets of 5, 2 sets of 10, and seeing how you do with that. From there, we can kind of equally see how am I doing with weight bearing here. And then even a simple one as well is just saying, okay, let's say it's my right arm, that's the weak rotator cuff. I'm going to do some of these 3-second hold. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Why? Because I'm getting a lot of weight bearing pressure here to help encourage not only the rotator cuff, but the other surrounding and supporting muscles. So an exercise like this can be great because it won't expose the rotator cuff to really extreme stresses where it's being isolated. There are other muscles, the shoulder, the deltoid, the pec, that are also able to stabilize in this position. And that's going to help encourage the rotator cuff to build strength, almost like having the other muscles there as a cheerleader to keep the shoulder stable while the rotator cuff is still being challenged. And most people find if you do 3 rounds of 5 of these, holding it for 3 to 5 seconds, it's going to really challenge that shoulder strength. So think about that exercise. Now, as we move on to more difficult exercises, we want to think about having our arms abducted. How far can I rotate upward? Is that going to be helpful? Is this challenging? Is this limiting? That these motions are some of the limiting motions or the most significantly limited motions, then it even can give you an indication that, hey, I have a rotator cuff issue possibly, especially as you notice a difference between sides. You might even start off here. So this is going to be more difficult at a 90-degree angle than being here and seeing, can I rotate? Because I'm still getting some rotation against gravity as well at the same time. And that's going to be a great one to help start building some strength at the rotator cuff level. From there, we can think about progressing into some overhead activities. So we can think about using some resistance bands to just do some press ups, just like so, right? Getting those other muscles engaged in coordination of the rotator cuff plus other muscles, and seeing, does that bother me, right? Can I go straight up versus being abducted? Can I just go into flexion here where I'm in this position? So understand that this going straight up is going to be way different than this, which will be much more difficult and much harder. And so those are ways that we can really back this exercise down and start to see, okay, it really is my rotator cuff that's limited and it's weak. And instead of just trying to power through it, I need to maybe first back down. Instead of just trying to keep going to the gym, trying to bench press, trying to do these general exercises where the rotator cuff is not specifically being addressed, but it needs to be stronger to help, so I can do a pull-up, so I can do a push-up, or so that I can just get off of bed and push myself up and not feel like, my shoulder's giving out, or not feel all of the kind of weaknesses that we might feel in the pain and the little things that happen. Instead of me just trying to push through general exercises, I need to back down and do some smaller, simpler, specific exercises that really only address the rotator cuff and build that strength there in isolation, so that it gets stronger on its own and it doesn't become the weak link in the chain when I'm doing general exercises that require the shoulder, the rotator cuff to be stronger, but it's just not where it needs to be. So one of the things that you want to think about is doing smaller, specific exercises that are simpler, that target the rotator cuff, like some of the ones I've shown you today. That's going to be a helpful starting point to strengthen the rotator cuff, but also for people who are trying to assess, like, okay, what's really wrong with my shoulder? Is the rotator cuff a major part of that? Even if it may not have been directly injured through something traumatic or whatever, it may be a part of it because it's a very integral muscle, and those muscles are very small. They can become neglected and they're very weak, and we typically don't work them out, but they are crucial. They're a cornerstone to most of the mobility of our shoulder, reaching overhead, lifting your arm to 90 degrees, or beyond 60 degrees, reaching back to grab something from the back of your car, or putting on your seatbelt, or different kind of things. So think about these exercises as a very great starting point to target and isolate that rotator cuff, but also to assess and see, okay, is the rotator cuff significantly involved in the limitations my shoulder is experiencing? And hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, like it and leave a comment what was most helpful about this video, and share this video with somebody else so that they can be benefited from it. And I would love to have you join our community by being a subscriber. So I'll say thank you in advance for subscribing. Subscribe to the channel so that we can help you continue to stay educated on all the things that will help you to stay healthy, pain-free, fit, and mobile, because we show you and teach you how to do the things that other people tell you you might not be able to do ever again, or things you think you may not ever be able to accomplish. So I can't wait to send you guys more videos that are going to be helpful. Leave a comment on other videos you would love to hear about. And again, thanks for subscribing. See you soon.